Hello, I'm David Rives, host of the TV show Creation in the 21st Century on TVN. Each week we talk about breaking discoveries in science which reveal that our Creator, the God of the Bible, has left a pattern of His fingerprints throughout the universe. Check us out and sign up for email updates at davidrives.com. Subscribe to our free monthly magazine and like us on Facebook for weekly inspiration and education regarding science and the Bible. All paleontologists believe that dinosaurs emerged millions of years ago. I just used fuzzy words, magic words, and red flag words in one statement. Find out how to spot them today on Wonders Without Number. Welcome to Wonders Without Number. I'm David Rives, and today we want to inform and inspire you regarding the wonders we find all around us. An infinite number of wonders that point us directly to our Creator, the God of the Bible. Now, you're no accident. I want you to know that you are special, that you were created in God's own image, that Jesus Christ is our Creator and Savior, and that He has a plan for your life. Now, when we think about evolution, a picture of Charles Darwin immediately comes to mind. It didn't start with Darwin, but he did have quite an impact. Let's take a look right now. Evolutionary ideas are all around us. Every time you turn on the TV, you watch the news, or read a science magazine, you will more than likely find evolutionary content. How did this philosophy become so popular that it literally took over science? Evolution owes much of its popularity to a guy you're probably familiar with, Charles Darwin. While he wasn't the first person to develop evolutionary ideas surrounding the development of the species, he did popularize these ideas. In 1859, he published his famous book, which most people have heard of, called On the Origin of Species. This book was based on his observations while serving as the naturalist on board the ship, the HMS Beagle. If you're familiar at all with Darwin's work, you know that he observed finches on the Galapagos Islands that had different sized beaks. Well, eventually he would interpret this to mean that these finches all had a common ancestor, and from there he inferred that all life had a common ancestor. Of course, that's a pretty big leap. We're talking frogs and giraffes and you, all coming from the same prehistoric ancestor. Now, most people think of Darwin as a dispassionate observer who simply reported on what he saw, and this led him to draw the conclusions that he did. But that's not accurate. Long before Darwin ever set foot in the Galapagos, he'd already rejected both the Bible as an authoritative source of truth and the idea of a God who interfered with his creation. Now, building on the ideas of his grandfather and others, he was actually seeking to explain life without God, actively looking for a way to push a creator out of the picture. It wasn't just Darwin who had a very low view of God. Many in both the church and the scientific community had accepted the idea of millions of years and uniformitarianism, the idea that slow and gradual processes account for what we see in the world. They didn't trust God's Word as the authority in matters of history and science, but instead relied on human reasoning. In other words, they ignored an actual historical account, choosing to rewrite history using nature as the supreme authority. Now, the church had also accepted an idea called the fixity of species. This is the idea that God created the species exactly as they are today and that species don't change. This idea doesn't come from the Bible, but it was a popular idea of that time that people read into the Bible. In The Origin of Species, Darwin clearly showed that this was wrong. Species do change, and they change a lot. Once Darwin showed that species do change, the idea of the fixity of species was proved wrong. It seemed like the Bible was wrong, and since people had already added millions of years into the Bible, it didn't take much for them to accept Darwin's new idea and relegate the Bible to just a religious text that didn't have much to say about the origin of life. But it wasn't the Bible that Darwin proved wrong. It was the unbiblical idea of the fixity of species. As believers, we need to be careful that popular ideas of our day aren't used to interpret the Bible. Instead, when we use the Bible to interpret what we see around us, the natural world, we actually find that science fits perfectly with the historical, biblical accounts. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God. We might use the Bible when defending our position, but it seems that the atheistic evolutionary doctrine being taught today has its own arsenal of words and phrases to use. And those advancing that doctrine use those words a lot. Now, I've brought in a former captain from the Marine Corps, Mike Riddle, and he's an expert in training people for success. He's been actively involved in ministry for over 35 years. He's a national track and field champion, and he's the president of Creation Training Initiative. So if you would, please join with me as we welcome Mike Riddle.
Thank you, David.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to have you here. And you came, you actually in the area right now visiting with some friends, but you are currently based out of
Boise, Idaho area.
You used to do a lot of speaking directly from the Answers in Genesis
Yes.
organization.
Yeah, that's right. We had a great time with there.
And now you are training people, doing these classes with many people, training them how to think critically, how to spot evolutionary words, how to combat some of these things. Is that right?
Right. How to go on the offense. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. I love that.
Right. And break down their strongholds.
Yeah. Well, that's so important. And today, I like the topic because we see these fuzzy words a lot, even in scientific journals and supposedly these expert opinions, we're seeing these things. So break that down for us and explain what you're talking about.
Yes.
Fuzzy words.
Fuzzy words and magic words.
Okay.
We use them all the time, like you say. Even as Christians, we use them. Now, I want to point out there's nothing wrong with using these kind of words that we're going to show.
Okay.
It's just the context we use it in sometimes can be wrong. And I like to ask, did you learn about fuzzy words and magic words in your English class?
No,
we learned about adjectives and pronouns and other things in there, but we didn't learn fuzzy words and magic words.
Okay.
So I want to get back to the critical thinking method again. Again, let's stop focusing so much on the evidence when we're confronted with so-called scientific evidence to support evolution. Let's look at the words they're used there in their statements. And that's a very critical thing to do. Focus on their words and hold them accountable. And you know what? You probably won't have to even answer their question because we'll show their question is an invalid question from the beginning.
Wow. Okay.
So that's part of the critical thinking method. So fuzzy words, how to read between the lines, how to recognize the bluff, and show me the observable evidence. That's the kind of things we're going to look for. Okay. So fuzzy words and magic words. Love that. And once I trained high school students on this, they never read a journal the same way again. And they start reading the newspapers because we find them all over the newspapers too.
Okay.
So it's a way to get them to start reading.
That's good.
So fuzzy words, what are they? We believe, we think, must have, could have, might have. Our opinion is we guess over millions of years. Well, what's so fuzzy about those words? Well, when those words are used, what it means is they don't have the observable evidence to support their claim.
Oh.
So that's the important thing about recognizing these words. They're trying to say what happened without producing the evidence.
Okay.
So I want to go through some examples of these.
Sure.
And here's one in a life science textbook, 7th grade textbook. And this is a statement they had in there. Paleontologists think that Archaeopteryx and today's birds descended from some kind of reptile, possibly from a dinosaur. Well, is that true or not? Well, let's point out the fuzzy words. Think that.
Okay.
In other words, they don't have the evidence there. They just think that this is what happened. That's the first clue. They don't have any evidence. Some kind of, they're not even sure what kind of reptile this is.
Okay.
And here's your real scientific term. Possibly. So what do they really know about this? Nothing.
Yeah.
It's all they're thinking about this and
Okay.
their ideas.
So this is not really a fact statement because they think that possibly some kind of something did this and that in the past, and often this is coupled with millions of years.
Right, sure is. So I like to point these things out.
Okay.
Now let's take another one. Here's out of the USA Today newspaper. There are likely tens of billions of Earth-like planets in our Milky Way galaxy. In fact, the nearest Earth-like planet may be only 12 light years away.
Okay.
And while a universe of hundreds of billions of galaxies, our entire universe must contain billions of Earth-like planets.
Okay.
Well, let's look for the fuzzy words and magic words. How about there are likely?
Okay.
That means they really don't know how many are out there at all. They're just making a claim. This next one, I love this next one. In fact, maybe.
It's contradictory.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
When you start looking for these things. And must contain. Why do they say must contain? Well, can't they say we know they contain?
Right.
They're making a claim without the evidence. You can even go back and talk about hundreds of billions of galaxies. Well, that one, there are a lot out there.
Yeah.
So we're not going to call that. But what do they really know here? They're likely, they don't know. They're contradicting themselves, in fact, maybe. And then saying it must contain. Why must it contain? Where's your observable evidence?
That's true. I mean, we can only see the observable universe, even through telescopes.
Right.
We can't even see the whole universe.
Right.
So all of this is based on assumption.
Right. Much of astronomy is. There's some things we know, but we can't touch it.
That's true.
Well, let's go another one. Here's the Perot Museum. This one sounds awful technical, though. Experiments with model protocells show how early life could have begun evolving. Protocells must grow quickly and reproduce most often when they contain genetic material that can copy itself.
Okay.
These protocells compete, outcompete others. Yes. Well, let's start with this. Model protocells. I'd like to ask, what in the world is a protocell? Has that ever been observed? There's no such thing as a protocell. We see things that are not cells, and we see things that are cells. So what is a protocell? Notice they had to use the word model. In other words, this is something that has not been observed. It's something we can build a model of if it really existed.
If it exists, we've built a simulation, and here's how we think it might work.
Notice they have nothing there. Then could have begun evolving. Notice that word could have, those words? They don't know, do they?
No.
This is all based on if evolution happened, this is what might have happened.
Okay.
And then must grow quickly. How do they know this if we've never seen a protocell? And then finally, these protocells outcompete others. Have they ever watched a track meet with these things in it? No.
Okay, so if they have no observational evidence, then they start sticking in fuzzy words to sort of make you think that they know what they're talking about.
Right. And this, our students could get caught by this and think this must be true. Protocells, they gloss right over it. Stop. What do you mean by a protocell? Has it ever been observed?
Okay. So we go back to three basic questions.
How do you know it's true? Has it ever been observed? Are you making any assumptions?
Okay.
Go right back to those.
Like what you're seeing? You can find so much more on the Creation Superstore. You'll find over 900 books and videos on origin science, creation, and Bible history. Whether you're looking for nature documentaries, educational books, homeschool resources, or children's videos, we've got it all, so be sure to head over and check it out. Use the promo code to receive 10% off your first order.
Joseph Silk. Now, he's a good astronomer, and I read his book, The Big Bang. Very good astronomer, believes in evolution. Now, in this statement, he's going to talk about how galaxies form.
Okay.
It's very technical, so let's read through it.
Okay.
Imagine that infinitesimal fluctuations in density were present in the early universe. The expansion of the universe must have exerted a stabilizing influence on such irregularities. The expanding universe has the effect of greatly impeding what otherwise might have been catastrophic forces. Nevertheless, the process of growth of fluctuations went on for a very long time. I like to ask people, how many understood what he just said there?
Right.
That's so technical. But where is the first fuzzy word? Imagine.
The first word is...
What does this tell you about the whole paragraph?
Okay.
It's his imagination. It's not based on any observable science. Then he says, must have. He's not sure, but he's just making his statement. They must have. Might have been. He's not even sure about his must have.
Okay.
And then for a very long time, how does he know that? No one's ever seen a galaxy form. No. Based on the observable science, what we know about physics, they won't form.
Right. So we've not even seen one star form. Nope. So how are we going to observe a galaxy forming?
Right. See, this whole thing is fuzzy.
That's right.
Just fuzzy.
Okay.
But they can make it sound so convincing.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to magic words
Okay.
now. That's a brief example on fuzzy words. Now, magic words, we're not talking about abracadabra here, but words that scientists use. And these are the words: appeared, emerged, arose, gave rise to, was on the way to becoming, burst onto the scene, evolved itself, and was making a transition to.
Okay.
These words talk about how it happened, but we don't have the observable evidence. Again, keep missing that observable evidence.
Right.
Let's take USA Today newspaper. I like this newspaper because you get so much good ammunition against evolution in it.
That's true.
Devil, that's evolutionary development, that's what that means, proposes that genes involved in cobbling together flesh and bone during early growth were repurposed to develop new structures throughout evolution's history by combining their functions in new ways. Where's the magic word? Repurpose.
Okay.
David, can I give you a homework assignment here?
All right.
I want you to go home tonight and repurpose yourself into another creature. How do you do that?
It sounds very technical, very scientific to me.
But how does a creature decide to repurpose itself?
Right.
Think about that. Where's the magic in all this? That's all this is magic.
And it requires a lot of faith.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
A lot of faith. Let's go to the Perot Museum again. In order to survive, living things have evolved sensory systems that are adapted to their specific environments and needs. In addition to seeing, hearing, touching, and smelling, organisms have evolved a fascinating range of ways to sense their environment. Some create pictures with sound. Others detect heat or navigate with electricity.
Okay.
He's talking about some amazing intelligence here.
Absolutely.
Evolved sensory systems. A sensory system is a very complex mechanism there.
Yes.
How did that happen? All they're doing is waving a magic wand and saying it evolved.
It evolved.
I need to see the observable evidence step by step.
Yes.
If they can't do that, they're asking me to believe this by faith.
I had Professor Andy McIntosh, who's been a professor at Leeds University in the UK. He was on here talking about the human ear. And just the whole concept of the way the human ear works, there is no possible way it could have evolved.
It's amazing. It does something we can't do.
Yes.
Turns sound waves into electrical pulses and sends them to the brain.
I know. And yet, somehow, okay, it just happened.
Yes, that's why we call these magic words.
Okay.
Here's some more. Adapted. I'd like to know how something adapted. Now, we do adapt. We do have the ability to adapt. I'd like to know what they mean by this, because they're going to get into natural selection. I would, we already have the information in us to adapt to different situations within limits.
That's
In
right.
other words, we can adapt to staying underwater for maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds longer than we did when we first tried. But we can't adapt to staying under an hour without any equipment. That's what I mean by within limits. We can adapt to situations.
We can adapt, and even within the entire creation, God has placed a diverse genetic sequence in every creature to allow it to adapt these tiny little changes to the environment.
Yes.
But there are boundaries. They can't go past that. They can't turn from one animal into another.
In other words, I could go to the Antarctic. I wouldn't like it because I'm a heat person. I would survive.
Me too.
But I would adjust to the cold after a while.
Okay.
But if we tried to stay in an oven that's 200 degrees, we can't do that.
Okay.
Just like you were saying, we have limits to what we can adjust to because that information's already pre-programmed into us.
Okay, so we've already seen two magic words in one statement.
Here's a big, long one.
Oh, wow.
Seeing, hearing, touching, and smelling, organisms have evolved a fascinating range of ways to sense their environment. Those are all complex mechanisms. How did they evolve these ways to sense their environment?
Right.
Show me the observable evidence, or he asked me to believe by faith. Kind of like a power question in there.
True. Okay.
Then create pictures with sound. That's pretty complex there.
It is.
And navigate, detect heat or navigate. This whole thing is nothing but magic. No observable evidence to support this claim other than just believe in evolution.
Right. So we have faith that what God says in His Word is true, that He did create in the beginning, but it's not a blind faith.
No, it's not.
Because we have all of this observable evidence and the good science confirming everything that the Bible states.
Exactly. When we get to the origin of life, our best scientists in the world can't even make one small biological protein.
So to believe in this, they have a lot of faith.
Yes. And so they just resort to magic.
Wow.
Here's another one, the complete dinosaur book here. Into this world came the dinosaurs. Initially small bipedal carnivores, and they rose to dominance at some point during the Triassic. Into this world came. Now, we can be a little facetious here. Did they come from Mars? But what they're really saying is they evolved. How did that happen? Because you know what we find out there? Dinosaur bones. I've been in museums all over this world. I see dinosaur bones.
Yes.
I look at all the books. I see pictures of dinosaurs. What am I not seeing? the thousands of transitions that led up to the dinosaurs, they're not in one single museum anywhere on this planet.
Okay.
So into this world is nothing but magic.
Cane. Yes. Right. Okay.
Then they rose. Now we can be facetious there. Did they get up off their knees? What does that mean? Well, they're talking about evolution there.
Yep.
How did that happen? I went through this book. There was no explanation.
When we look at the origin of life, the only other alternative besides being created, and I believe it was created by the God of the Bible, is to say it's spontaneously generated. It just somehow popped into existence. It arose from nothing.
Right.
And that's not scientific.
No, it's not scientific at all because there's no observable evidence. And it's not even a scientific statement to say we evolved by naturalistic processes, the origin of life.
Okay.
Because we can't even repeat the experiment. We don't even know what the situation looked like.
That's true.
So it's not even science to make that claim. And at some point,
Yeah, that's really specific, isn't it?
Yes, real specific. That within 3 or 4 billion years.
Yep.
Okay, how about this one? Around 230 million years ago, during the Triassic period, a new type of reptile emerged. So you're starting to recognize these right away on the scene. Dinosaurs would rule the land for 160 million years.
Okay.
New type of dinosaur emerged.
Just emerged.
Yes. How did that happen? We just got that magic wand. Just believe us. I've got the degrees.
Right.
But you know the problem is, if we don't answer these questions right on the test, we fail.
Okay, and can't we use the 3 questions just on this one statement?
How do you know it's true?
How do you know that's true?
Yes.
Okay.
Has it ever been observed?
Has it ever been observed?
Are you making any assumptions?
Are you making any assumptions?
Right. And they fail on all 3 of them, don't
Okay.
they?
Okay.
Good. Well, I like this one. And some of us older people would recognize this robot off an old cult show there called Lost in Space.
Yeah,
it was so ridiculous, but people loved it.
It's a classic.
Yes, it's a classic. And I use this for red flag words. What is a red flag word? It means when somebody states one of these red flag words, a red flag should go up in your head, an alarm. Yeah. Something's not right here. Let's look at some of these red flag words. All, everybody, no real scientist, I think, truth, fundamentalist, intolerant. Well, the first 3 of these, all, everybody, no real scientist, express an absolute. You got to be careful when we express absolutes.
Okay.
The next couple express a personal idea or opinion.
Okay.
And the last ones are just used for really name calling.
Okay.
Reference to being closed-minded.
Yes.
We're going to get to that when someday we'll have logical fallacies there.
Okay, that'd be great, yeah.
So, red flag words. Let's take a look at some examples here. Red flag statements. People should decide for themselves what is right and wrong. That's a personal opinion.
Okay.
What that is doing is putting that person in the situation of they're the authority. What makes them the authority?
Okay.
That's actually a logical fallacy, appealing to authority yourself.
Oh, okay.
So who made them the person who can decide this? Now, here's how we get around this. People should decide for themselves what is right and wrong. Well, if people should decide for themselves, then I just decided what you said is wrong.
Okay, okay.
Now, this is an example we call moral relativism, which is a self-defeating philosophy. And people buy this all the time.
Right.
So we need to train our junior hires how to answer those kind of questions.
Okay.
No one has the whole truth. You know that one, David? No one has the whole truth.
They don't. You know what? I don't know everyone.
Yes, that's right. It means he knows everyone. He doesn't.
Yeah.
A better statement would be no one has the whole truth, including me.
There you go.
So if no one has the whole truth,
okay,
then why should I believe what you just said?
Okay.
See, it's self-defeating. This is moral relativism. You know, moral relativism and evolution are at heads. They contradict each other. And people are walking around believing both. They're living with contradictions.
Wow.
All real scientists believe in evolution.
Okay.
It means he's talked to all scientists. And here's another thing. He's put himself in the position of being the authority, and he's appealing to his own authority for this statement. Okay. It's a logical fallacy. Yeah. What does he mean by real scientist?
Okay.
Yes.
So he gets to decide who's the real scientist.
He decides.
There are, I've interviewed, and you have as well, dozens and dozens of PhD scientists who are strong believers who say that, no, evolution, it's just not possible. No. So he's deciding who's the real scientist.
Right, and it's used against me in debates, and I will ask him, what do you mean by real scientist?
Right.
And it's people who believe like him. So
okay, elevating himself into the authority.
Exactly. Why are Christians so intolerant of other views? Well, here's how we answer that. Okay. Why are you so intolerant of my alleged intolerance?
Ah, okay.
So they themselves are making an intolerant statement here, and they're putting themselves up as the authority again. What's intolerant, what's not intolerant? These are all logical fallacies. And then, I believe women should have the right to choose. Well, he's putting himself in the position of authority. And so this deals with the abortion issue, and I like to answer this one. We are not against a woman's right to choose who she wants to marry, what job she wants, where to live. We're not against the woman's right to have all that. But what gives women the so-called right to choose to kill another human being and end their career?
From day one of conception, has its own unique DNA sequence. It is its own individual, and she's choosing whether another individual is going to live or not.
Right. And we know as a fact, life begins at conception.
That's right.
Anything else is an emotional appeal or an assumption.
Yes.
So we have the science on our side right there.
Okay.
Now, there are such things as loaded questions. I want to just throw a couple of these out real quick.
Okay.
3 things about loaded questions.
Yeah.
And I just want to point these out. A loaded question typically contains a hidden or unjustified assumption. And we're just going to go through 1 or 2 of these.
Yeah.
A loaded question is phrased in such a way that it puts a person on the defense. And then a loaded question can trick a person into agreeing with an idea they actually don't believe.
Okay.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
David, do you believe in evolution?
Okay.
See, that's a loaded question. If you say yes, you're going to lose. If you say no, you're going to lose.
Right.
Now, in a loaded question, you must find the hidden premise or the hidden assumption, challenge that, then you can answer the question.
So what would you say, how do you define evolution?
Right. What do you mean by evolution?
Okay.
If you're talking about microevolution, which I don't like the term because it's talking about evolution, it's really more genetic variability.
Right.
If you're talking about what you mean by microevolution, variability within kind, we do accept that because we see that all the time.
It's observable.
Right. But if you're talking about macroevolution, Darwinian evolution, where we go from amoeba to man, I don't agree with that because no one's been able to present the observable information there.
Magic words, fuzzy words, red flag words, and loaded questions.
Yes.
That's so exciting. We can use this every time we go out, we talk to people. You've done so much research on this. Your website.
Creationtraining.org. That's all one word. Creationtraining.org.
Mike, we're completely out of time. I'm going to have you back on another program sometime.
Well, thank you very much, David.
Thank you for being here. I'm pretty sure that everyone you know who is currently attending public school, college, university, or pursuing higher education really needs a copy of what we just heard. Being able to spot the words and catchphrases that are so often used in naturalistic science makes it clear that evolution is only guesswork. It contains personal ideas and opinions with no observable evidence. That's faith. Let me tell you about my faith. I do believe that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, the sea, and everything contained therein. But don't take my word for it. There's a historical record inspired by the Creator Himself that tells us just that. And the book of John explains that the Word became flesh. You know, through Jesus Christ, all things were created. Without Him, nothing was made. What's more, without Him, there's no hope for the future because we are all sinners. But because of what He has done, if we confess our sins, He is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins so that we can be with Him forever. We want you to be encouraged and educated as you boldly go forward and share what you've learned today. So leave us questions and comments on our Facebook page and give us a call to learn more. I'm David Rives, and until our next time on Wonders Without Number, keep looking up. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God. Hello, I'm David Rives, host of the TV show Creation in the 21st Century on TBN. Each week we talk to some of the world's leading scientists, all showing how our Creator, the God of the Bible, has left a pattern of His fingerprints throughout the universe. Engage with other like-minded believers through the Creation Club, a place for biblical creationists to share and learn. This fast-growing website offers over 1,000 articles written by authors from many different backgrounds, already encompassing 6 different languages. Combating the unproven theories of evolution, our 24/7 TV network reaches millions of people with biblical truth. Genesis Science Network broadcasts globally over the internet, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, mobile devices, and more. It's a new Christian alternative to the evolutionary programming so prevalent on TV today. Be sure to sign up for our email updates and like us on Facebook for weekly inspiration and education regarding science and the Bible. Talk to your pastor about sponsoring one of our live events in your church or community.